We said that the Holy Tradition is the life of the early church that handed over truth to the church, that was called by St. Paul to be sure that this is a biblical concept. He said the church is the pillar of the truth, and it's pillar of the truth in the church. So the church keeps the truth. That was before the holy books were written. And we said that the sources of the Holy Tradition, among them are the writings of the fathers and the early fathers in particular, and the laws of the assemblies and so on. There is a question: when was the New Testament ratified or approved? It's a historic thing as a holy gospel. When it was legalized, canonized, like when the book was canonized as the gospel. Look, for this picture, it's complicated, but it's important. The orange color is before Christ. These are the Old Testament books before Christ. And the books of the Old Testament, we took them from the Jews. And the Jews recognized 46 holy books, including that we have now, including the canonized books. This is why we and the Catholics, we do not have any apocrypha books. We have second canonized books we took from the Septuagint, 46 books that are dealt with as holy books in the Old Testament. Then our brothers, the Protestants, in the 16th century, they removed 9 books and they said they are not canonized. Of course, that's very recent, like 16th century, but the early church lived with 46 books, convinced that they are holy books, all of them. But the New Testament, you would notice that the last one who wrote in the year 100. So the books were written between the year, for example, 45 to 90 or 100 AD. That's the time of writing the books of the New Testament. In the year 170 or 180 AD, there is a document called Muratori document. That was the first assembly that they found in the manuscripts that says that the New Testament Gospel is 27 books. That was the first collection, or where there was fragment lists that had almost the books of the New Testament, just short of very little. We have the 4 Gospels, the book of Acts, 14 epistles, 7 Catholicon epistles, and then the book of Revelation. So when you collect them, there are 27 books. In the year 180, Irenaeus, one of the famous saints of the church early fathers, and his writings are well known all over the world. All the scholars, even in the Catholic and Protestant institutes, they know that Irenaeus is the father of the tradition, as they call him, because he was among the first historians of the church who are believed and recognized. Irenaeus also testified to the books of the New Testament early. See, before we get to the year 2000 AD, by the strongest document that is well known in the world and acceptable by all the churches in the world, and there were no sects, so that nobody can say the sects played any role at that time, is that in the Easter of the year 367 AD, our Pope was Pope Athanasius the Apostolic. He declared to the whole world that Christians all over the world, because there were no sects, believe in the following books. That was in the Easter Eve. He sent this epistle to all the popes in the world. They were all brothers at that time. There were no divisions or different churches. All the world was one church. So he started to say Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, as you have it right now. So that's the strongest document since the year 367 AD, confirming that the Bibles that we have in our hands, the 27 books, were there during the time of St. Athanasius. And then after that, they recognize the same thing was recognized in another assembly, not a universal one. The 27 were recognized. The last thing I will tell you about lecture, we'll take a small lecture before the youth come. During the time of persecution, many people do not know that the persecution against the church, especially our Coptic Church, took different forms. Like all the world churches were persecuted. The Russian Orthodox were tortured a lot. The Armenians were tortured a lot. The Ethiopians, the Syrians. There was no true church like in early one that was not persecuted, because St. Paul said, all who want to live with piety in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. But we are proud that we were, from the first day till today, we are still persecuted. Like most of the churches have times of persecution and it calms down, but for the 2,000 years there is persecution. So the first time in the world there were 10 emperors, Roman emperors, who persecuted Christians, to the extent that the old interpreters, like the monster with 10 horns in the book of Revelation, they interpret it as the 10 emperors who persecuted the church, like the Roman state as of Nero till it ended with Diocletian, focused on persecuting Christians, and then after that the Lord calmed down persecution. Then Constantine, the emperor, recognized Christianity. Those 10 emperors had most of the famous martyrs. For example, the first period of Nero, that's where most of the apostles died, like Peter and Paul were martyred in Nero's times, the 67, and many of the other apostles. After him came Domitian. He also didn't live long, but he was against the church, and he killed the rest of the contemporary saints at that time. And Saint John the Beloved was tortured during his era, but he didn't die and he was exiled. Then Trajan, the emperor, focused on persecuting Christians. Then Marcus Aurelius, and then Severus, and then Maximus, and then Decius. Decius or Dacius, that we mention in Marcorius Philopatir praise, that's where he was martyred in 2050 AD, so early. Then after that came Valerian, Saint Catherine, and saints like that, and then Aurelian, and then the last one was Diocletian. Most of the famous, like Saint George and all of them, were martyred during the era of Diocletian. So all those emperors, with their job was to persecute Christians, and they had a desire to abolish Christianity completely. All of them went away and the Roman Empire collapsed and Christianity remained. But for example, why would we say that our church is a mother of martyrs or the church of martyrs? Because, for example, in less than 10 years only, during the time of Diocletian, Egypt alone gave up almost 800,000 people, almost like 1 million martyrs in 10 years. And that shows us the greatness of the church. Our church always gives martyrs, but there was a time there were heaps of martyrs. You hear the history, it would say they entered the village, they would kill everybody, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, they killed them all. So the year 284 was considered to be the beginning of the Coptic calendar, the martyrs calendar, because that was the peak of the martyrdom during that time. So the fathers chose the time when Diocletian reigned on the throne. They started with it the martyrs calendar or the Coptic calendar, 284 years. So this year, for example, is AD, the year AD, you deduct 284, and that would be the Coptic calendar. So in the Synaxarium, they would say this person was born in this year, Coptic or AD. The difference is always stable, 284 years, which is 84 AD was the first year martyrs. St. Catherine was 305 AD, St. Barbara 306, St. Mina 309, St. Peter, the end of the martyrs, 311, the 17th Pope. They were all during the time of Diocletian. And we have in the Synaxarium, most of the half of the year are martyrs, like 184 stories of martyrs in the Synaxarium. That's not recording all the martyrs. We said like there were 800,000 in one era, but what was mentioned in the Syrian of the martyrs' stories, like 184 story. There were stories that were not mentioned. They are in the praise or in the history books. They are numerous. Let us say a hymn, please. All this is called persecution during the Roman era. We'll talk tomorrow about persecution in the Arab era, because there was other persecution after the Roman. Persecution didn't stop. The persecutors are different, but persecution goes on and on. Our theme is lift up your hearts, and it's said in the Divine Liturgy, and whenever we pray, especially in the Divine Liturgies, when one sees everything around him right. There is a rule that St. Anthony taught us, and that today we like it. They like it in the Christian psychology, and it was said like 1750 years ago: know yourself well, you will know the Lord. Know yourself right, you will know the Lord. Because most of us cannot see himself in the right way. So we have three types of self-evaluation or assessment: your opinion about yourself, people's opinion about you, and God's opinion about you. So I want to talk about this half an hour, and then our youth will enter, and then we'll have like a tiny debate. How people see you, and how God sees you, and how you see yourself. And I will show you how this thing will makes a difference. But when you lift up your heart in prayers, God will tell you the truth of yourself. Do not believe people, and do not believe yourself, because sometimes yourself will tell you something other than the truth, but the only one who sees you right is the Lord. For example, to understand what I want to say, Saul the king, let us analyze his character. Saul the king, in the opinion of people, he was a crazy man, because he was about to kill his son when he defended David. And he was like kind of demon possessed, and he wanted to get rid of David. Why do you bother about him? Care about the kingdom. He became very upset and crazy in his decisions. And you all remember when David hid in the village of the priests, how he brought all the priests and killed all of them. That's people's opinion. What about Saul himself and his opinion about himself? Saul told them, don't you pity me? He sees himself as a person who is oppressed, and all people hate him. Imagine, see the distance between people's opinion, and they see him something, and he sees himself as other thing completely. This is what happens sometimes. Some people live that way. People see them with strange behaviors, and he thinks that he's the only persecuted, oppressed person. All people are against him. This is how he sees something different from what people see. If we go to the Lord and ask him, Lord, what is your opinion about this man? You chose Saul one day to rule your people. He said, I chose him, and he was a kind peasant and simple one. And so what happened? He said the problem is that he went away from discipleship and went away from spirituality. At the beginning, he was a disciple of Samuel, and he saw himself as a poor person, and he depended on me, and he prayed, and he was good. When he got away from Samuel the prophet, then he got the egomania, and he was proud, and he was another person. So is Saul good? Yes, he was good. So he got confused. So take care, because here there are three different assessments: how Saul saw himself, how people saw him, and how the Lord saw him. You all know the most important opinion of the three, of course, is the Lord's. The judge at the end is the Lord. So to put ourselves, how people see you, how you see yourself, and the most important, or more important than you and than people, how the Lord sees you. We go to another personality like Ali the priest. Remember, Ali was before Samuel the prophet, like Samuel's mother took him when he was 3 years old and gave him to Ali, and she said, I vowed him to the Lord. And before that, Ali the priest told her, the Lord will give you Samuel. So that man was a priest, and he was an old man, and He told her, you will have a child, so God gave her a child. In people's opinion, people saw Ali at the beginning he was good. People saw him a priest who neglected the right of the temple. That's people's opinion. This is why they say many people left the temple, because his problem is that he left his children who were priests. He was an old man, and the priesthood was inherited, so his children, the priests, committed adultery inside the temple. So what is Ali's opinion? If we ask, he said, am I able to do anything to my children? I cannot do anything to them. I'm unable to stop my children. So he sees himself as overcome. Then let us see God's opinion, because the Lord said his opinion in Ali through many people, among whom is Samuel. He said, no, you scorned me, you honored your children than me, you took away my right. So God's opinion was that he was so upset with Ali, and Ali's life ended in a hard way. He was an old man, and he was on a high chair when he heard that the tabernacle was taken, the ark was taken. He fell and his neck broke and he died, and his children died in the war. So at the time when he saw himself as a poor person who had nothing to do, the Lord saw, no, you had a lot to do. But as for people, they saw him as unable to manage his children, and that's it. Let us go to someone like St. Peter, the disciple. St. Peter, after the denial in particular, what is people's opinion? If you go to Matthew, the apostle, or St. Thomas, during the next day of the cross, on Saturday, how did they look to Peter? They sympathized with him. He's their friend, their brother. It's a friendship. They were said that he was broken, if he denied, that's so hard for him. That's people's opinion. What do you think, Peter? No, I'm a failure. I'm total failure. Someone like me cannot be an apostle. I'll be a fisherman again, and I have nothing to do with these things. These are good people. They continue as apostles. I am out of this. Let's go to Christ. What do you think, Lord, about Peter? He said, no, I have one opinion. Peter loves me. Loves you? Even after the denial? Yeah. And he asked him, do you love me? He said, I love you. So your opinion about Peter, that you love me? Yes, I love you. That's Christ's opinion. He is someone who loves me, and he will remain a shepherd and apostle for me because he loves me. Peter saw himself as a failure. Christ saw him as an apostle and a shepherd. The apostle saw him, is he going to continue or not? He did a disaster. So again, take care. People's opinion is something, your opinion about yourself is something, the Lord's opinion is a third thing. The good person is the one who is not influenced by his opinion about himself or people's opinion about him, but keeps lifting up his heart to the Lord and say, I want to know your opinion about me. Tell me, what do you want me to reform before I leave? That's what's important. If people glorify me, they make me lost, and if they humiliate me, they can lead me to be lost. I don't care about people's dignity or their humiliation. I want to know at the end, what is your opinion? So let us see some possibilities here, the possibilities that we may fall in assessing ourselves. The first possibility, some of us see themselves as good people. Some people are so satisfied with themselves and their internal slogans, there is nothing more than what is there. I pray through the Agbeya, I pay the tithe, I have communion every week, I serve the Lord. So he has some kind of internal satisfaction that he does what he has to do and more. And you get surprised that people's opinion is different. This person is troublesome. You hear things like that. There are religious people who are troublesome. How come he sees himself as good and people are troubled with him? There must be a problem, like schizophrenia. What is the problem? How, if he is really religious, he would be very comforting. But if he is troublesome in his nature and his way, no, there must be something wrong. Let's go to the Lord and ask him. You would be surprised that the Lord would say, no, this person doesn't hear me at all. He hears himself only. He is religious according to his own will. He doesn't do what I want. So God's judgment would be close to people's judgment. The person who sees himself good is not good. That's very clear in the angels of the 7 churches. He said, because you say that you are rich and you don't need anything, and you don't know that you are miserable and poor and blind and naked. How come you see yourself as rich and before the Lord you are miserable and poor? Something wrong. Someone else would say you are like alive, that's people's opinion, and you are dead. That's the Lord's opinion. So sometimes the judgment, some of us are satisfied with themselves so much, but actually they need treatment and a lot of reform. The evidence is that even people feel there is something wrong. It's not comfortable, it's troublesome. There is another possibility, the opposite. Some of us see themselves as so bad and failures. These are those with low self-esteem, and you're not satisfied with yourself at all. You go to people and you're surprised that people say he's so loved. I had a young person like this. He was not satisfied with himself. I know that all people like him and they think of making him a priest because he is a beloved, successful person, but a servant. But you sit with him, he has low self-esteem, he sees himself, I still don't know the Lord, I am a failure. You're exaggerating, my son. Let's go to the Lord. The Lord, you'd find, the Lord would say he's good, he's not an angel, he's not perfect as people see him, but he's not lost as he sees himself. But the Lord is happy with him that he's trying, he is exerting an effort, so for the Lord he's good, like something good can get out of him. So there is, sometimes you see yourself one way and the truth is not like that, and sometimes you don't see yourself at all and the Lord sees something good in you. So there is a third possibility, that you see yourself as dishonest totally, and people see you as so honest, and the Lord sees you as you need repentance so that your honesty increases, because he says every night, who is the honest, wise agent? So if you see yourself doing or not doing what you have to do, the most important one is the Lord. He can tell you there is some point that you need to fix. You don't read the Bible well. There is someone that you cannot love. You have a lot of spare time. You still bother about money. You have many good things, but this point needs fixing. But people see that you are so good, and that's it. They don't see the part that needs fixing. So if you depend on people's opinion, it will not go well. So what should we do? What is the problem of people's opinion, my beloved? Why that thing is dangerous? Because sometimes one would care only to hear people's comments, like as when we dress so that people can see us. Sometimes we talk so that people can comment. Sometimes we move, or we do everything so that at the end the feedback or the reaction of people, and we forget that those people will depart and we shall depart. The problem about people's opinion is that people usually judge according to the external part, like you are standing to pray in the church, so they closing your eyes, they say you are a saint. Are you going to believe it? Whatever they say, you are not a saint. Who hears your voice at home, he will know that you are a saint, but of a different kind. But in the divine liturgy, you are praying well. Okay, the Lord be with you. You are trying. So if one depends on people's opinion, he would be deceived, because people will judge according to the external part. Also, people's opinion, they influence one another. Someone says about another that he's bad, and the third would say he's bad. So it spreads. It's like, and someone would say this person is great, so all people say he's great. No. But people exchange opinions and they keep playing the game of the telephone. Like they spread rumors. So people influence one another in opinion. Also, you all tried that people may take extremes. Sometimes they are so right or so left. It's very clear in Acts 14. We studied that in evangelism in the same country, where they brought sacrifices to offer as thinking that Paul is God. After 5 verses, they stoned him. Were those people crazy? They brought sacrifices to slaughter for him because they thought he was the Lord. That was Paul and Barnabas. And then after that, some people came and played with their minds, and they said, he's evil, we are going to kill him. So are we going to worship him or kill him? See how the extremes? People are like that. People can go up or down. So whoever will follow people's opinion will go crazy. The problem is about one's opinion of himself. When your opinion of yourself, sometimes you are with the glass. Someone has a magnifying glass, so you see things like pride. You see yourself as big, and you're not big. And there is another glass that would make things smaller, so you have low self-esteem. You see yourself as very, very small. Actually, the problem is in the glasses. This glass is wrong and this glass is wrong. They are not fitting. So someone can magnify problems, and someone else can magnify accomplishments. Someone can see himself with great accomplishments, and another person would magnify his problems, and the one who has problems has accomplishments, and the one who has accomplishments has problems. So what do you focus on? Sometimes when you sin, and we all sin, the sense of guilt gets bigger and cancels everything beside it, as if you didn't do anything wrong. Yes, you did something wrong, but there are many good things. Why do you erase the good things? The good things are still there. So take care. People's opinion is biased, and your opinion of yourself is also mostly biased. So you may deceive yourself. Let us go to the Lord's opinion. The treatment, remember this verse, I'll finish in 5 minutes. Do not judge according to the external part, but give a fair judgment. Do not judge about yourself or about according to people's opinion. Be realistic. Be moderate. Understand that you are a weak person. Whatever people see you as good, or whatever they see evil, you are not so bad, because there is something good in you. St. Paul lived according to that principle. That made him, he said, the least thing for me is that to be judged by you or by any humans. Like, people's judgment on me is very little. I don't give it much weight, because people will go up and down. They may sing and this so, and they may insult like others. So I do not judge about myself. I chose this topic because of that verse. He didn't follow people's opinion or his own opinion about himself. He said, I do not feel anything about myself, but I'm not justified. The one who judges me is the Lord. So this is someone who focuses the Lord. Lord, what should I do? What do you want to fix in me? What do you want me to do? So he would tell him, you are my son and my beloved, but I want you to fix so and so. So another rule as well that was mentioned in the Bible, so that we do not get deceived by judging ourselves, and lifting up the heart would weigh the heart. You want to know, are you on the right or wrong track? What do you need? Our Lord Jesus says, foolish ones, didn't the one who made the inside, made the outside, made the inside? Why are you focusing on your appearance from outside? There are things that do you pray at home as you pray in the Divine Liturgy? In the people we see you standing for 2 hours. Do you stand for half an hour at home on your feet? Why? Because at home nobody sees at home? Something wrong. When you speak at the Sunday school and preach, what you say is between you and the Lord, or you is just preaching? Didn't that who did the outside did the inside too? Again, Christ said, how can you believe while you accept glory from one another? and the glory from the one God. You do not ask for it. When you accept glory from people, you cannot hear God's voice. If you run after people's glory, you will deceive yourself. You will not be able to believe when you accept glory from people. I would conclude with some recipes so that one can do the right evaluation. Read the Bible a lot to be able to evaluate yourself. The Bible is God's voice. Put the Bible as a mirror. It's a mirror that will not lie. It's not the mirror of people, because you can compare yourself to some thieves and you would say you are an ideal person. Yes, you are ideal for thieves. That's another story. But for the Bible, you are not ideal. So the mirror of the Bible is not mistaken. Read the Bible a lot. Number 2, listen to criticism with humility. When someone criticizes you, when your wife or when your son complains against you, when someone at work is annoyed with you, give a chance and listen to the criticism. Maybe the Lord is telling you something. Do not get tense and you think yourself so bad or so good, but also try to distinguish. Maybe this voice has some truth. Beware not to look for praise or comments. Do not be influenced when people praise you a lot. This is not useful. It will not give weight at the end. So be realistic. There are people by their nature, they have good tongue, right? Like when we go to the poor people in Egypt and we enter any of their homes, they say, Christ entered our home. Are you going to believe it? They will have to pray after you leave so that God prevents evil from home. Are you going to believe that Christ entered? Be realistic. They are simple and angelic people. So whoever comes from the church, they think they see him as Christ. They are saints, not you. Understand the idea? So you cannot come out and say, take my blessings. No, be reasonable. In the treatment too, do not surrender to the thoughts of pride. When there is something inside you, there is a voice, I did so and so and so, and I became so and so. That's so dangerous. Take care of the parable of the rich foolish person. He said that and he died the same day. And the story of Nebuchadnezzar, when he became like animals afterwards, after being proud. Also go back to your spiritual father. Your spiritual father is the voice of the Lord. The father of confession will never tell you you are a saint and will never tell you you are a devil. Any priest will tell you, my son, you are doing good in this, but this is not good. So he may encourage in something and push in something else. He's a good doctor in treatment, so that do not be fascinated by your opinion or people's opinion about you. Forget yourself by serving others. As long as you serve people, you will live in a right way. Glory be to God forever and ever. Amen.